It begins in a very quiet place inside you, in a moment so small you barely recognize it happening. You might be sitting with someone you care about, reading a message, or thinking about something simple, and suddenly something shifts in your chest. It is not dramatic or loud or even emotional at first. It is just a tiny pause your mind slips into before you understand what the pause means. Your breath slows without warning, and your eyes drift slightly away, as if the present moment has become too sharp for you to stay connected to it fully. You stare off for a second longer than you should, and in that short moment your mind has already begun rewriting the emotional tone of everything around you. Something inside you retreats, not because anything bad happened, but because your brain sensed something familiar. In those first 10 seconds, your body reacts before your thoughts do. Your shoulders tense a little and your hands feel heavier or unsure. Your chest tightens by a degree so small you convince yourself it is nothing. But it is something, and it is the beginning of distance. Not physical distance or even visible distance, but emotional distance that only you can feel. Your emotional brain moves faster than your logical mind, and it takes the lead before you are even aware it has made a decision. It searches for the earliest memory that feels similar and returns with a reflex. A reflex built from moments you were not ready for. A reflex built from times when closeness hurt or vulnerability was misunderstood. These memories do not return as images or words. They come as sensations, instincts, and protective shifts inside your body. Before you know it, your brain has chosen safety over connection. You do not tell yourself that you are pulling away, and you do not decide to shut down. Your mind simply flinches emotionally, the same way your body flinches physically when something comes too close. You look away without wanting to, or talk less even though the conversation matters. You say you are fine even though something inside you tightened. You pull your feelings back into your chest and hide them behind a quiet wall only you know exists. Pulling away never feels like a choice in the moment. It feels natural, automatic, and safe. Someone asks if you are okay, and instead of telling the truth, you nod because honesty feels heavier than silence. Someone says something kind and you downplay it because receiving softness feels unfamiliar. Someone gets emotionally close and your brain reacts as if closeness is a danger you must brace against. This is not weakness but an attachment reflex. It is a protective mechanism your brain learned years ago and has repeated ever since. It hides in the eye contact you avoid and in the messages you take too long to reply to. It hides in the way you say it is nothing when it is always something. The moment someone touches a part of you that still feels tender, your brain steps back even if the person is safe. Your nervous system does not care about facts at first. It cares about patterns and anything that feels too similar to a previous emotional bruise. When something feels familiar, your brain prepares for impact. It does this even when there is no impact coming. You think you are distancing because the moment is uncomfortable. The truth is, you are distancing because it feels familiar. You have lived through moments where honesty was punished, or where softness was used against you. You have lived through moments where you cared more deeply than the other person could handle. Now when you feel something too deeply, your brain tells you to soften the feeling by stepping away from it. You do this without deciding to. You do it because your emotional brain learned that pulling away felt safer than staying present. It learned that distance meant protection and closeness meant risk. It learned these patterns before you had the tools to question them. You feel the shift in small details and in the way you stare at the floor to avoid letting someone see what you are feeling. You feel it in how you choose distraction instead of vulnerability. You feel it in how you mentally disconnect from a moment that requires emotional presence. You may not know why you are withdrawing. You only feel the pull, the heaviness, and the need to step back into yourself before someone can step too close. You convince yourself you are tired or not in the mood, but the truth is softer and deeper. You pull away not because you do not care, but because you care more than you know how to handle. Connection feels fragile and you have learned to protect fragility before exposing it. Every time you pull away, distance becomes the shelter you return to. Your mind builds a story to justify the distance, creating explanations that feel logical. You tell yourself maybe they do not care, or maybe they will misunderstand. You wonder if they will judge you, or if you should not say too much. These thoughts do not represent truth but fear shaped by the past. Your brain is trying to guarantee safety, even when safety already exists. It forgets that practicing distance does not prevent pain. It only prevents closeness, which may be the very thing that could heal you, but the reflex feels real and powerful. In those first 10 seconds, withdrawal feels like the safest option. Your mind thinks it is protecting you from emotional harm. Instead of preventing pain, it often creates it by cutting off possibilities for connection. The moment you notice the shift, something important happens. Awareness interrupts the pattern and opens a small window. You feel your stomach tighten or your breath change. You sense your focus drifting away from the moment. This noticing becomes the first crack in the reflex. Your brain pauses when awareness enters the moment. Even a small movement helps. A deeper breath or a shift in posture can slow the retreat. These actions tell your emotional brain the moment is safe enough to stay in. With time, awareness becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Staying present becomes easier than pulling away. Closeness loses its threat and becomes something you can stay with. The silence that once felt dangerous becomes breathable. Vulnerability that once felt overwhelming becomes something your heart can slowly hold. Distance becomes less necessary as fear becomes smaller. Every time you stay 1 second longer than your reflex wants, you rewire the pattern. Every time you breathe instead of retreat, you teach your brain a new definition of safety. Slowly, the reflex loses strength. You stop entering old emotional patterns. You stop withdrawing the moment someone gets close. You stop assuming that tenderness hides a threat. You begin seeing connection as possible and safe rather than dangerous. You stop disappearing emotionally. You stay and let yourself be present in moments that once scared you. You hold the feeling instead of escaping from it. When you stay, something inside you begins to shift. Your heart begins trusting the present. Your nervous system begins relaxing. Your emotions begin softening. The reflex that once controlled your relationships becomes quieter. It loses the power of invisibility. All of this happens in the tiny 10 seconds before you pull away. Those 10 seconds shape stories of closeness and distance. Those 10 seconds decide whether you retreat or remain. And those same 10 seconds hold the power to begin something new. If this moment feels familiar, it means you have lived inside these reflexes for a long time. If something inside you felt understood while reading this, it means you are finally ready to change what happens in those first 10 seconds. Because the moment you notice you are pulling away is the same moment you gain the power to stay. And staying, even for 1 second longer, is where everything begins to change.